Welcome to Orientalistics podcast on language, culture, and religion. This episode, an Iranian German actually under the Russian fire. Dear listeners, welcome to another chapter of the Orientalistics, a podcast which gives a space for language, culture, and history, and where human stories rise above the din of politics and war. Today, I invite you to step into a tale of fate and fortitude, of exile and endurance. Imagine leaving behind the streets of your childhood, not out of necessity, but out of longing for adventure, for love, for a place to call your own. Now, imagine that the newfound home, that sanctuary of your choosing, shattering around you in the deafening roar of war. What does one cling to when the ground itself trembles? Where does the heart belong when the sky rains fire? Our guest today has walked that precipice, born in Iran and raised in Germany, shaped by the quiet perseverance of his Iranian Bahá'í heritage. He ventured eastward, not as a refugee, not as a wanderer, but as a man in search of new beginning. He found it in Ukraine, in its people, its streets, and the love that anchors him to its soil. But when war came, it did not ask for his passport. It did not ask for his nationality. It did not care for his origin or his choices. It came for all, though he stayed. This is not just a story of survival. It is a meditation on belonging, on love and loyalty, on the threads that binds us human to a place when that place starting to burn. And for me, this conversation carries a personal weight. Nearly 25 years ago, in the lecture halls of Germany, I met a fellow student, a young law scholar named Ario Dehghani. At the time, I was at the start of my PhD, and he was immersed in his legal studies. We spoke, we laughed, we parted ways as the people do. Life carried us forward, scattering us like seeds to the wind. And then years later, I saw him again, not in a cafe, not in a conference, not in a meeting of choice, but on my own television screen. His voice echoing through an interview on German news. His face was older, his eyes carried the weight of war. But there he was, Ario, caught in the tides of history. It was then I knew I had to reach out, had to hear the story that only he could tell me. He could tell the audience. And today, I invite you to listen with me what he has to say. So, without further ado, let us welcome my dear friend, Ario Dehghani. Hi, Ario. Thank you so much that you had time for us and for our audience. And I had already preamble. I just introduced you very briefly, but I would like to give you, the speaker, and to our audience that you would introduce yourself a little bit about your upbringing, about your background, and your Persian, and but you were born or raised. You're gonna explain it in Germany, and you're also belonging to the Iranian Bahá'í minority in Germany. And we'd like to know how your upbringing and your, let's say, religious identity shaped your ideology and your Weltanschauung.
hmm Thank you so much, Farshid. It's such a pleasure to
Absolutely.
be with you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Absolutely.
So, I was born actually in Iran,
Oh, okay.
and I have to introduce a little bit the story of my parents. So, my
Absolutely.
mom is German, and my dad is Persian,
Okay.
and they met in Germany because my father studied there in late 60s, and
Okay.
then they got to know each other, were together 3, 4 years, married. And then immediately after they married in Germany, moved to Iran,
Okay.
to Tehran.
Okay.
And this was 1972. And
It was
1970,
prior to the
yeah,
Islamic Revolution,
pri
of course. Yeah.
prior to the
7 years before.
revolution,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And my mom, she went there when she was 19 years old, a young German, blonde, blue-eyed girl,
Okay.
married a
Okay.
Persian, went to Iran. And the family of my father, they were all Baha'i.
Okay.
And so they lived together in a big house, a lot of brothers of my father together, and
Okay.
they were very close to each other. And my mom said, if you ask her today, she would tell you that these were the best years of her life. It
Wow.
was a very nice country, very nice people. She learned Persian very fast. So after 6 months, she could speak fluently Persian,
Oh my God.
and
Okay.
she was totally accepted. And also the life they had there, she said, was much better than in Germany.
Wow.
And because of a lot of things. 1976, this wonderful idyllic things changed because I was
Yes.
born together with my
Okay.
with my twin brother. So we were
Oh, you
twins.
have a train. I didn't know that. Okay. All right.
Right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
also my parents didn't know that because
Okay.
the belly got bigger and bigger, and they only heard one heartbeat, and they thought it's a very fat child. But
Okay.
indeed, it were two boys which were coming, and my heart was not so strong, so that's why they couldn't hear it at that time. And so we were born 76, and then we lived together as a family in Tehran, and my parents built up a good life there. In 1979, the revolution started, and my parents left Iran together with us. And they wanted to go first to Canada or to the US, and then they went to Germany and stayed there for a while. And then they just got stuck in Germany
I
and
see.
still live in Germany now. So we were raised then in Germany. And what was interesting for my Persian heritage, we only spoke Farsi before we came to Germany.
Okay.
And my mom very randomly talked German to us. And so the first language we spoke, my brother and me, and that we learned and we heard was Farsi.
Wow.
And we could speak only Farsi when we arrived in Germany. And my German grandmother and grandfather, they told us the story when we came. They talked German to us and we didn't understand a word. But my brother and me, we were talking Farsi to each other. And after we came to Germany, my parents did the opposite. They started only talking German. My dad could speak fluently German because he studied in Germany before, when he met my mom. And so they thought it's better for us, for school, for everything, if we stay in Germany, that we learn German fast. And so we forgot Persian, so to say, and learned
Okay.
German. And I tried to cultivate this later in my life to again learn Persian and to speak a little bit more. But
Okay.
so the family of my dad, they're all Baha'is. My mom was Christian when they married, so she
Okay.
was not a Baha'i. And she became Baha'i when we were 10 years old. So 14 years after they married, she decided to also become a Baha'i.
It means the
But
conversion happened in Germany. I mean, she
in
converted.
Germany, right,
Okay. All
right.
right.
So this means from my childhood, what I remember is that we talked a lot about religion, but also not only about Baha'i, but also about Christianity, about the Bible, and also a little bit about Islam. But later on, after we were 10 years old, the Baha'i faith became more and more prominent, let's say like this. And when we were 15, my brother and me, we both declared ourselves to be a Baha'i.
I see. And now, if you allow me just a question, I mean,
Please, please.
you told me that your mom was of Christian background. Was she Catholic or Protestant?
Protestant.
And
And
was she prior to conversion to Baha'i religion? Was she a religiously inclined or a believer? I mean, did she believe in Christianity and then she converted it from one religion to another, or she was kind of very secular, liberal, and then she decided to just convert to Baha'i?
so the first one, my mom was a very devoted Christian.
Okay.
And she was, when she was a kid, she was always in a Gottesdienst, you say in German, like a church
Yeah,
service
exactly.
for children or others. She was always active when she was a kid in the church, when she was a teenager, and later when she was a young woman. And she always said also later that she would never have become Baha'i if this would have meant to give up Jesus, to give up the
I see.
relationship she had
I
with
see.
Jesus. So for her, it was she didn't give up the relationship to Jesus, but she more identified Baha'u'llah as the next manifestation, but still kept this precious relationship she has and had with Jesus. And the reason why she became a Baha'i or started thinking about that was my brother, when he was 8 years old, I was also eight because we are twins,
Of
he
course.
asked my mom, um, why do you have different religions, you and dad? Why are you Christian and why is that Baha'i? And why don't you have one religion? And why? Because it's many things are the same. So he said this when he was 8 years old, and my mom then
Yeah.
started thinking about it, and also thinking about this prophecies that Jesus, um, the Father will come back, Jesus Christ will come back, and then she started studying the Baha'i writings without telling my father. And then at one point, she just declared herself as a Baha'i. My dad was very surprised, actually, but
Okay.
it took a few years. So it took her 2 years, 2.5 years to come to this conclusion by herself. And yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. And now, my subsequent question would be that what I asked before. Did the Baha'i perception for you, not in matter of religiosity, but in matter of how you view the world, did
Mhm.
it shape your personal and your family life in a way?
Definitely, definitely. So, I mean, I give you an example. When we were kids and we were in the kindergarten in Germany,
Yeah.
when we had birthday, we invited the kids we were friends with. And what was interesting, at our birthday parties, there were kids from all over the world, like from Uganda, from Italy, Romania, also Germans, of course. But we were like as a child already, and I think it also is connected to the fact that we already had a German mother, grew up in the first years in Iran. So we were already a little bit more open. So we were not, how to say, we knew two sides of cultures already by growing up in Iran and seeing my parents. But then when we came to Germany, also this Baha'i view of mankind to be open to all human beings and cultures reflected even in kindergarten. You could see that. And this was continued also in school and other things. But we also had our challenges, of course, because we were not the usual Germans. We didn't have a usual German name. So Dehghani was a Persian name, Ario was a Persian name or some name which is not German. Karan, my brother, had a Persian name. And we were a little bit sometimes treated with suspicion or something is different with them. We
Mm.
didn't, for example, drink alcohol or drugs. The Baha'is are not allowed to do that. Um, as teenagers, we tried very few times to do that just to see what it is, but also later on, we realized, okay, the Baha'i identity was more like, okay, let's not do it, and we didn't do it, and this was also like a separation from friends who were drinking, partying. We could also party. We were also party masters, my brother and me, but with alcohol and drugs, it was a little bit more different than others, let's say like this. So it was always like present that we were somehow a little bit different, let's say like this. We were not like the mainstream, let's say like this.
I see. And now a further flashback now to your time. I mean, of course, you were just a toddler and a child when you were in Iran. What is your reminiscence and your memoir from the time you have been in Iran? I mean, as a Baha'i minority, even prior to the Islamic Revolution, I know that I'm from Shiraz, and that was actually the inception of the Baha'i religion in late 18th century, 19th century. So, and I know from my own memories that even prior to the Islamic Revolution, it was not like that, that the ressentiment and the animosity toward the Baha'i religion started exactly after the Islamic Revolution.
Mm,
It was latent, existed. I mean, during the Pahlavi time, they destroyed actually Baha'u'llah's house in Iran, in Shiraz. And this means this animosity and this ressentiment against this religious minority existed in Iran
mhm.
even prior to the Islamic Revolution. But what do you know from your first-hand memory or from that what your parents narrated to you? How was your life prior to the Islamic Revolution in Iran?
I mean, we were 3 years old, and we did not witness any prosecution or difficulties also for my parents and their families in Tehran when we were living there as Baha'is. But you are, of course, right. I mean, the House of the Bab was destroyed in Shiraz, but we had family members of my dad who had problems. So the family of my dad originally they are from a small village, Kushkek, near Shiraz,
Okay.
and I remember this was also accompanying us as kids when we were coming to Germany. My dad was very serious in always telling us what happened or what happens to family members who are in Iran, or just to give us this memory, let's say, to cherish that, to also not throw it away at one day to say it's not important. So, for example, one of my dad's cousins, Hedayatullah Dehghani from Kushkek, he was a member of the local assembly in Shiraz. And when we left Iran, my dad, I remember like my dad telling that he met him, and Hidayatullah said he will not go somewhere else, he will stay, and but that my dad should pray for him that he will be steadfast if something happens, that he will not run away.
I
And what
see.
happened after 1982, 3 years after we left Iran, Hidayatullah Dehghani, he got shot by a squadron, by military shooters, with another Baha'i friend of this local assembly, and was shot to death because he was member of the Baha'i community and member of this local assembly in Shiraz. And my dad always told us the stories, and this is like manifested in our soul, kind of. And later on, even what my dad always did was also very smart. When we did something not nice, let's say like this, he always said, okay, think about all the family members who sacrificed their life or anything in Iran for the Baha'i faith and this and that, and think about what they would say if they would see you.
I
And this
see.
was always hunting us. But this is in our memory, so this we cherish very much this sacrifice of the family members of my dad's family, but also other friends who were close to the family in Iran.
I see, and thank you. And regarding the point of the migration of
Mhm.
your family members, your father, your mom, and your sibling, how was the perception? Did your family or was aware of that they would never come back to their
Mm.
homeland again? Did your father? Because I mean, I can imagine that after the Islamic Revolution and after you migrated with your family to Germany, your parents never had the chance to go back to Iran. as a non-recognized religious minority, Iran, which is enduring the harshest, in fact, discriminations in Iran, even worse than the other minorities undergo, like Jews, Christians, or Zoroastrians, who at least are the people of the book, according to what they believe in, that being Ahl Kitab. So they are the people of scripture. So their, let's say, freedom and liberty is a little bit preserved, according to that, what we call it as the Islamic constitution of Iran. But nevertheless, I can imagine that prior to the Islamic Revolution, the Baha'i minority had a little bit more liberty in comparison to that, what happened to them after the Islamic Revolution. We know from the news and from the reality what happened to Abbas Huwaida, the Prime Minister of Iran, who has been executed immediately after Islamic Revolution occurred in Iran, and his only accusation was that he is a agent of Israel or United States. And in fact, the only reason of his execution was his belonging to a Baha'i minority. Now, did your family know that they could never come back to Iran again?
They didn't expect it. So what happened to my family was, to make it short, um, my dad was a professor at the University of Tehran for economic and agriculture. And he said, when the first signs of this revolution, the people were on the streets, and then um, uh, he could see something is going on. What he did, he put my mom and us small kids into on the plane to Germany and said, "Stay there. If it's getting calm again, come back." So they thought at the first time when the revolution started, this will be a few weeks, months, and then it will be over and everything will be like it was before. And then my mom was in Germany at her parents' house near Frankfurt, and seeing on the news that the revolution is getting worse, and this, hearing from my dad what is happening to family members, to friends of the family, and here and there, not only Baha'is, also other professors or intellectual people hunted down and prosecuted. And then she lost the contact to my dad, and it was very tough to keep up the contact, the communication, because they didn't have mobile phone at the time and this, or internet. And then what my mom did was very courageous. She took us small kids and flew back to Iran.
Oh my
And
God.
she said at the flight in Frankfurt, when she entered the booth, the Iran Air lady asked her, "Are you really sure you want to go back to Iran? Look, you have two small kids. What do you want there? Are you sure?" And she said, "Yes, yes, I have the flight ticket. Please let me on the plane." On the plane were only my mom, us two kids, and two, three diplomats. Yeah, and in a Boeing 747 big plane. And she was then arriving in Tehran. My dad picked her up, and she said the moment she arrived there was totally different. A lot of military, a lot of pressure, tension. And she said everywhere people with machine guns. And one person with a machine gun came to her when she exited the plane because she didn't wear a chador, no veil on the
Headscarf,
hair,
yes.
no scarf. And then he said, "Where's your scarf? You need to put on the scarf." And she said in a perfect Persian to him, "I look much better than you. Better you put the scarf on and cover your face than to ask me to wear one." And then the lady came and gave her, of the passenger, gave her the scarf of herself, another one, and said, "Put it on. Don't argue with these people." Because her mom is like a German,
Of
directly
course.
saying
Yeah,
what she thinks.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
it's totally cultural difference to the Persian culture. And then she was like supported by this lady not to get in trouble. And then they were in Tehran and tried to get out and needed three attempts to be able to leave the country. And the third attempt was successful. And then they arrived in Germany. And still at that time, they didn't know what will happen, but they had a feeling it can be a year or two, and then they can go back. But they would never have thought that they need to stay in Germany and will never go back. So this was also tough for them to realize, especially for my dad. So yeah.
I can imagine, because lots of our family members and and distant relatives of us also, when they left Iran just with a suitcase, they thought it's a turbulence in Iran and everything will be calmed down and we're going to come back. Some people left their houses, they didn't even take their furnitures with themselves, and they didn't even freeze their bank accounts. They just left everything, and they thought this is something very interim, they're going to come back, but there was actually an exodus without return. I can
Mm.
resonate with that very well. Now we are in Germany. Now your family arrived in Germany, you raised in Germany, you had your formative years in Germany, you studied in Germany. How was for you in late 80s and 90s, the attitudes of Germans towards you? I mean, you were 100%
Mhm.
German, you were raised there. That's actually, meanwhile, you're actually your first language, your mother tongue, I would say, in literary meaning of the word, your mother tongue.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
and how was it for you? I mean, having you mentioned that indicated before, having the first name Ario Dehghani doesn't sound very Germanic. So, how was it for you, Ario? I mean, did you
Yeah, yeah.
feel somehow being excluded partially because you look different, you sound different, your name is different, and partially because you're not necessarily, quote unquote, following the Christian religion as a Christian, but belonging to Bahá'í minority? Was it kind of a double burden for you? On the one hand, being Iranian, on the other hand, being not even Muslim, but Baha'i, something that most probably in late 80s was not very recognizable from if it didn't from for Germans, and most probably they couldn't even pronounce it. They asked maybe 2 or 3 times, "What is Baha'i? Right? Is it something to eat, or is it or is it something to pray to?" How was it for you? That
I mean, we were also not so mm, open with it that we told to everybody we are Baha'i. But
I
when
see.
it came to the point that when we didn't drink alcohol or anything, and they said Baha'i, exactly what you said. They said, "What is this? What are you? What is that? Islam? You're Persian? No, not Islam. What is that?" So it was very strange for them. But for me, so it had a few stages which were interesting for me. So I was blonde when I was a small child,
I see.
and I looked like a German kid. My brother Karan, he was totally looking like a Persian kid.
Okay.
So he had even more problems at the beginning than I had. And then when we were getting older and I got a little bit darker, let's say like this, in the German mind, I got a little bit darker. I also had these comments, why did you get so dark? Also, family members of the German family, oh, you were so dark. What happened to you? So it was like for them always like interesting, let's say like this. But I never had the feeling to be to not belong to the community, let's say like this. But it was always interesting for them. I could see they struggle, and Germans always say what they think. They're not very, this is like a general understanding of Germans. They're not very polite. They say what they think and they just,
Yeah.
so we had some funny moments, let's say like this, but we never had the feeling, oh my God, we are suppressed or we feel human beings second class. Never, never. Because we had a German mom also. And every
Yes.
time we had problems in school, my mom was always going there and putting the fist on the table. I remember we had one German teacher in the seventh grade, eighth grade, and he was teaching German poetry and everything. And he gave us extra bad grades because we were foreigners. And this was
I
totally
see.
you could understand that. So he said, for example, when we got a test back, uh, this person, Julia, and this super grade A or B or this, and then Karan, oh, um, you are getting better. Um, E, like
Yeah.
E, not F, but E. And then
Exactly.
Ario, super, super. For your ability, super, you get a D. And I understood, okay, and we had two other foreigners in the class, and they were treated the same way. And my mom then went to the school and said, okay, if this doesn't stop, I go to the police, and this teacher will need to leave. And then they changed the teacher for us or did something else. My mom was always like pushing and to get justice for us. But yeah, overall, I think it was not very strange to grow up in Germany. We were used to different cultures already from childhood, and we had a German mom and this was actually easy for us, I would say.
I see. And most probably that was also your luck that you did not live those time in East Germany. Most probably the situation would be quite different. And because I think the western part of Germany prior to reunification was a little bit more exposed to have Turkish guest workers, Caesonia, we called them, or Portuguese, or people from all backgrounds in the eastern part of Germany, where you actually completed your law studies.
Mhm.
The proportion of the non-German actually minority was quite lower than the West Germany. Now, back to your experiences. Now, you moved to Friedrich Universität Jena, Friedrich
Mhm.
University Jena, to study. It was, I think, we met in 2000, 2001, I think, was it, if I'm
Mhm.
not mistaken. What did motivate you to come from the quite prosperous western part of Germany to come to a, well, relatively not very developed part of Germany back to 2000? It was just a couple of years after the Berlin Wall. And of course, Friedrich University had a good fame, but what was the incentive for you to come to Jena? I mean, it was my luck because I got the chance to get to know you. But
And my luck,
what
and
was the
my luck,
reason?
yeah.
Yes, thank you. What was it? What was the reason that you came to Germany, to Jena and to study? You doing your legal studies as law student?
So I was started in Gießen, a small town near Frankfurt, with my
I see.
law studies, and then I went to Augsburg, and I was in Lausanne for
Oh,
one semester. And then I ran out of money, and then I needed to come back to Augsburg very fast because I underestimated how expensive Switzerland is. And then um, I went to Jena. I decided to go to Jena because, based on Baha'i community reasons. The Baha'i community in eastern part of Germany, they had activities also at that time, and the Baha'i community in eastern Germany was very small. And a few communities in cities like Halle, Weimar, Jena, they asked, especially students who are Baha'i, to come there to study there to support the Baha'i community there. Because there were five, six people or eight people, and I originally wanted to go to Weimar, and then I had a dream, and a very, very um, um, powerful dream where I could feel a lot of things. Sometimes you have dreams when you eat too much, or you reflect about things that happens in
it
your
was rather a
life, or
nightmare for you, right? Kind of.
right. But
Okay, I
but
see.
but but sometimes
Yeah,
you have like dreams
yeah,
that are really where you have such a strong feeling that you think, okay, this can have a meaning or it's
I see.
different.
I
And this
see.
was one dream I had, that I arrive at a place with a train, and a lot of people are there smiling, greeting me with flowers. And this was the place I need to go. And then I looked at the because I was in a train station in a dream. I looked at uh,
The
um,
banner you saw.
the
Yeah.
banner of the town, and it was saying in German "Paradise." And
Oh, okay, of course.
and and then my I had a call with my cousin who lived in Jena at that time, my
I see.
cousin Sasha, who also fled with his family out of Iran, but they had a much worse story than we have. But I cannot tell you that. But he was, as a 6-year-old, imprisoned on the way. Went the way over Pakistan, and he needed to. He was how you call this, interviewed by military police of Iran when he was
Okay.
6 years old, if he's a Baha'i, and if yes, and why, and this, and he was saying, yes, I am, with 6 years. So, but he lived in Jena at that time, and then he told me that in Jena there is a train station called Paradise.
That's true. Yes. Jena Paradies.
Paradis, Jena
Exactly.
Paradis.
Yes.
And then I said, okay, perhaps I should look into perhaps going to Jena, not Weimar. And then it turned out that this was, from the numbers of the community, also a better choice. And then I moved to Jena. So that's how I came to Jena, and it was the best decision in my life until then.
Amazing. All right. So now I know that you studied law. Yeah, and you completed your BA studies in law in Jena. And now, how was your further path of your professional life? You went back to Munich. What did you do? I mean, did you practice in your profession as a lawyer? Did you pursue a particular specialty, family law, criminal law, or economic law? What was your specialty in Germany prior to your final movement? Of course, we come back to that
Yeah.
to Ukraine.
So in Jena, I did my Staatsexamen, the university degree you need in Germany to become a lawyer. And then on top of this first Staatsexamen, you need to make a second Staatsexamen. Then you
Okay,
get an attorney, like a bar exam. And this bar exam I did in Cologne. So I
I
moved
see.
from Jena to Cologne
Okay,
and lived there 3 years, did my bar exam, and then I moved to Munich and worked there as a lawyer. And I started at an international law firm, very big one. And like always, the prejudice of international law firms, I worked like a donkey until 10 o'clock in the evening, a lot of work, but I learned a lot. And the people I worked there with were super people. And it was so nice so it's always nice to have colleagues you like, and that's to motivates you to go to work every day. And this was the case there in Munich. And then um, I actually still work for an international law firm, for a different one now, but now I work for a law firm, Baker McKenzie, the Ukrainian office. So Baker McKenzie is also an international law firm, and I work in the Ukrainian office of Baker McKenzie in Kiev at this point of
amazing,
time.
amazing. I know. Apropos talking of Ukraine, so your life sometime took a really, really different path in your life. I mean, why Ukraine and what happened? I mean, you had a stable life as a lawyer
Right.
in Germany, one of the most industrious and economically prosperous country in the world. What did motivate you to go to Ukraine, and when was it?
So I was working in Munich at this international law firm um, starting 2008. And I was working there until 2013, let's say like this, actually since 2016. But what happened is I got a super career and I was really moving forward. I had wonderful colleagues, a wonderful boss who supported me, and I really still have a friendship with Sebastian and other colleagues from that time. Sebastian was my boss. And so everything was super perfect, let's say like this. And I had money, I was young, and also did a lot of Bahá'í activities in Munich. And so also from the spiritual side, everything was perfect. But it got a little bit boring, let's say like this. And I also had the feeling always that Germany, I need to go to another country and to be in another country, to see other cultures, to be open, also to help buy activities in other countries. I always had this inspiration to think about this potential way, and but it never manifested. And then what happened 2013? I was a delegate of the National Assembly of Germany, this is the Baha'i institution, and I took part at the International Convention of the Baha'i Faith in Haifa 2013. And what happens there is every 5 years, all members of the national assemblies worldwide, of the Baha'i national assemblies, they come together to Haifa, and you see then about 1,500 people in Haifa in a Congress hall, and they elect the highest institutional body of the Baha'i faith, the Universal House of Justice, with a seat in Haifa. So I was a delegate of the National Assembly, member of the National Assembly, going to this international convention, 2013, being in Haifa, thinking about nothing specifically. And then I met my now wife, Zhenya.
Genia. Okay.
And she was a Ukrainian coming for translation services. She was translating from Ukrainian, from Russian into English and from English into Russian, because a
Oh,
lot of people from all over the world, 1,500 to 800 people coming there, they speak mainly Spanish, Russian, English, a little bit other languages, but they had like 8, 9 translator teams, and so she was a translator. And I met her, and my cousin, who was in Jena, Sasha, he
Sasha.
was at
Yeah.
that time living in Haifa also.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
but he was serving there in an institution there in you can serve as a Baha'i also in the World Center in Haifa, and he was serving at that time in Haifa. So I met him, and we were talking, and always when Sasha and I meet, we talk hours about everything, hours, hours. So we were standing in Haifa in one of the Baha'i facilities outside the house there and talking, talking, talking. And then Jenya, my now wife, walked by, and Sasha introduced me to her. And then he said to her, to Jenya, why don't you come to our place, to Sasha and Shamsi's place where they lived in Haifa at that time, and
Oh,
the
Shamsi
family.
was there too. I remember Shamsi,
Shamsi
of
was there.
course. Yeah. Okay.
And Ario will also be there, and then but we want to see you, and also Shamsi wants to see you
Okay.
because she also
Okay.
knew Zhenya, and she came and I met her, and then during this time of the international convention, I met Zhenya every day for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and these were the best 15 minutes of the whole day. So, and
Amazing.
at the end, I said to her, "Okay, what do we do? We had such a great time, and you are in Ukraine. I even don't know where is Ukraine, you know?" And she said, "You know what? Come and visit me." And so 3 months later, I visited her in Ukraine, my first time in Ukraine. I landed there in
And
the
what year
airport.
was it? What year
This
was it,
was
Arya?
2013.
2013. Okay.
So summer
I
2013.
see. Okay.
I was there at the first time, and I landed there, and I thought, because I expect kind of Siberia, some jungle or whatever, but it was totally fine. It was totally European, modern. The airport. Then Zhenya picked me up with a taxi driver, was also okay. The highway to the town was okay. Kiev looked a little bit different than Munich. Yeah, the houses were sometimes a little bit old post-Soviet style, but also very beautiful and interesting. And what was really amazing me when I was there, and I couldn't speak the language, Zhenya introduced me to thousands of her friends, a lot of friends. Some could speak English, some could not speak English. And what was amazing to see these people, these Ukrainians, and I totally fell in love with the Ukrainians, not only with my wife, but also with the
Amazing.
Ukrainians.
Amazing.
They were
Amazing.
so open, so sweet, so simple-minded in a pure way, not like intellectual. They were not simple, but they were like so open and easy to talk to, and you immediately can bond with them. And it's very interesting to see a very different culture, like the German one, a very different culture than the Persian one, like a mix between the two, but also a little bit survival in chaos people. So they had a lot of problems in the society and government structures and everything, corruption, but they somehow survived. And even if the police was totally corrupt, they somehow managed to live in decency with each other, and they're very nice people in general. And so I fell in love with the people, and then I thought everything is matching. So you have this girl is amazing. The people here are amazing. Your life in Germany is getting boring.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is the open door. You just go through it. This is what I thought.
I see. And now, I arrive in Ukraine. I mean, how did your integration in the Ukrainian society, in terms of profession, language, and culture occurs? I mean, it is. I mean, this is even one step further back. It's not even Russian; it's Ukrainian. Now, let's go one step further. What was your perception of Ukraine and Russia? Because I mean, you went there 2013. It was even
Yeah.
before the struggle on Crimea Island, which actually
Mhm.
occurred 2014.
Right.
When did you decide to migrate to Ukraine?
So we married, my wife and I, Zhenya, and we met each other in April 2013. In July, I visited her in Ukraine. In October, we married in Ukraine.
I
So
see.
6 months after we met in Haifa, and after
Wow.
I visited Ukraine, we married in Ukraine. Um, my parents were there, my brother was there. We had very small people, a very small amount of people, like 10 people were at our wedding, and quick and easy. And it was so nice. And after we got married, I was looking for a job in Ukraine. It was very tough because I couldn't speak the language. And the people, my profession, my main expertise that I built up at Hogan Lovells in Munich, the international law firm I worked for in Munich for 8 years almost, before I married my wife. I am a compliance lawyer, meaning I'm conducting compliance internal investigations, helping companies to build up strong compliance systems against corruption or against other things, and also help with regulatory compliance, meaning if you have a EU regulation which is implemented into Ukrainian law, then I can help the companies in Ukraine to adapt to that requirements they need to fulfill. And but the market at that time when I came 2013, I met a few law firms there. They did not understand quite well what is compliance, what is anti-corruption compliance, what are compliance systems. They were not used to that. Also, it started very few only in the law that they implemented some EU laws or some EU-like laws. So the market was not so ready for an EU lawyer, compliance lawyer, investigation lawyer to come and offer services there. And then I was looking actually 1.5 years, almost 2 years for a job, and I found one, a law firm there in Kiev. They offered me a job and said, okay, come, and we pay you 2,000 euro per month because we don't know if it will work out or not. And then we see from there. And I said, okay. And everybody in my family, also in Germany, and my friends said, you are crazy. You have such a good job in Munich. You had such a good life. Now you move to Ukraine, you stay there, you look for a job, and then you find a job where you earn like a third or a fourth of what you have in. But I thought it's okay. I go through the door and I continue going. So it's okay. Everything is on the path and everything will work out. So, but it took me quite a time to find a job. And then from there on, everything opened. The market changed, compliance got more important in Ukraine to attract investors, to attract Western trade investors or investments. But also now, even before the war started, the full-scale invasion, 2022, compliance got more and more important. And so my place was perfect. So I could build up actually my reputation in the market, and everybody knows me also in Ukraine. So if you say my name, they always think I'm Italian. I don't know why, because of Ario. Say, yeah, this Italian who does anti-corruption compliance. Yeah, we know him. So this is
Right.
this is fun, but it was tough. And but we managed it, or we got support somehow. Let's say like this.
That's amazing. Now, and now we come to the really crucial part of our conversation. I mean, what was your perception of Russia in general?
Hmm.
I know that in general, Germans are not necessarily very positively inclined when you talk about Russia, even prior to um, Ukraine Russia war. There was never a neutral answer if you talked about Russians in Germany.
Hmm.
And it has, of course, reasons of the World War II and the remigration of lots of Russians of German descent to Germany, so-called Spätaussiedler. There was
Hmm.
always a tension between the German population and Russians. But what was your perception prior as you really went there and you saw with your own eyes what's going on there? Did you have any connection with Russians
Yeah,
or Russian
yeah,
culture
yeah.
prior to your migration?
So what was interesting, I had a German grandma, the mom of my German mom. She was originally from Pommern, a very eastern part in World War II Germany,
Yeah.
which was then given to Poland.
Poland,
And
exactly. Yeah.
and they needed her family, they were farmers, and they needed to flee from the Russian army. So when I was a kid, we when we grew up in Germany, we went to vacation when we had school vacations. We always went to my German grandparents, and so we also had a very close relationship to them. And my grandma always told us about stories about the Second World War. She also had still nightmares when she was an old lady and sleeping beside us when we were kids. Um, so this was a trauma for her and her family with very cruel details I want to spare now. But they had very shocking moments in this field caused by the Russian army going westwards against Nazi Germany. And they needed to flee their old home and then got into some problems there with the Russian army as well. And so always she said, the Russians, the Russians. She was always having very high prejudice against Russians. And when I told her that I met a Ukrainian and I want to move to Ukraine, for her this was a total shock, you know. So
Oh,
before I met Jenya and before I had, but as a Baha'i, I never took this very serious. Of course, I took serious the feelings of my grandma and the injustice that was taking place there because you know you cannot, even if you love whole humanity, there needs to be justice also. And if somebody does something wrong, be it the Germans, be it the Russians, be it the Persians, be it the I don't know what, they need to be taken accountable for wrongdoings. So that's why I had never had like I didn't hate Russia before I came to Ukraine, but my picture of Russia before I came and when I came was very different because I thought I will visit Russia at one point. The family of my wife, they are divided over all ex-Soviet states. Some are in Kazakhstan, some are in Russia, some cousins. Most of them are in Ukraine from one part of the family. But and we were talking when we met, my wife and I, and we married, that we will visit also the family part in Russia one day, and I was looking forward to it. And I always wanted to travel there to see Moscow, to see St. Petersburg. But this happened, unfortunately. And then after 2014, when this Crimea annexation, everything started, also the feelings towards Russia and Ukraine changed rapidly and not in my inner being, but I felt that the Ukrainians felt very sad and offended and by this annexation of Crimea and this annexation of Donbas and Lugansk. And this was also a big topic always. Even in our activities, of the Baha'i activities, when we talk to the people, we say you need to love the whole humankind and be open and serve humankind. They at that time even said some of the people, yeah, but Russia we keep out of this nice group. And I said, no, it's also human beings. But so there were ressentiments against Russians already there. And then I learned that in the society, a lot of people started learning speaking Ukrainian and only speaking Ukrainian. I started learning Ukrainian when I came 2013, but then my bosses from this law firm said to me, you need to learn Russian because all the lawyers talk Russian to each other. Business, they talk Russian to each other. And so I learned Russian. And then I realized that some people were offended after 2014 when I spoke Russian, you know. And so it was quite interesting to see this shift and especially young people. So the older generations who still had ties to the Soviet Union, they were not so much affected by this opposition to Russia per se, but younger people more. And yeah, this was also very sad to see that this was like a break in the relationship of the two countries, you could see.
I see. I mean, I did my studies in Caucasia, in Georgia, and partially in Russia. Prior, I went to Germany in 2000.
Mhm,
So, and I visited both countries and back to um, late 90s. It was an absolutely another cultural mosaic that I knew.
mhm,
And last time I was there, it was 2000, I think, 21. It was in middle of the COVID. The perception you have from the Russian population, the civilians, I had
mhm,
always a very welcoming feeling, very warm-hearted people. And I want really just to set here the calculation correct that that's all about the politics. I think the
Hmm.
in every war, because there is no just war, there is just war. We have just war, but there is nothing that you could say this war is just or unjust. There is civilian and civilian casualties who are suffering. Now, how where have you been when the war broke out in
Hmm.
2022?
So I was in Kiev. So we were in Kiev, and I remember I had a lot of clients who asked me when Russia was building up the forces, the military forces at the border of Ukraine, who asked me, okay, should we make plans to evacuate our people? What do you think? What is this? What is that? My feeling, I was one of the very few people who said also to my clients that I think that the Russian army will invade Ukraine. And why I thought that, because I thought this is objectively probably the last chance for the Russian Federation to do that before Ukraine gets economically and militarily too strong. So Ukraine was getting stronger on the economic side and also on the military side. And so I could realize from the geopolitical mathematics that if they want to do it, they do it now. And this is what I told them, all my clients, okay, be prepared that this may happen. And I think personally that this will really happen. But we never would have thought that it will be like this, because the expectations were totally different. So everybody thought, a lot of people, that the Russian army will enter a few kilometers or a few towns, and then everything will put on hold and they find a solution. But it was really interesting to see that it was totally different than everybody of us who expected it to be. Um, I remember on the day when the full-scale invasion broke out, I woke up a little bit pre-story. We moved to our new house a week before the full-scale invasion started. So we bought a duplex, a small, like a Reihenhaus in German, a very small townhouse, you can say. We renovated it over half a year, and then we were about to move in, and then we moved in, and a week later, the full-scale invasion started. And how did it start? We were in our new house. I was sleeping in our bed with my wife beside me, the kids in their room. And then I woke up and I felt the bombing. You could feel it in your stomach. And it sounded like a thunderstorm, but you could feel it in your stomach, like the trembling of the ground, you know. And
Yes.
then I got woke up, and woke up my wife and said, something is wrong. This is different. What is this? And then immediately people called, sent messages. Russia is bombing. Russian army is bombing Borispil, Kiev, other parts of Ukraine, and we could witness that. And then what was interesting is we got up, and my first thoughts were, okay, what parts of the house are secure if a bomb rocket
Oh
falls
my
nearby
God.
the house or in the house, and where to put the kids and the wife not to get hurt. This was my first instinct, you know. And then I was friends called me and they were totally devastated. And then they said, okay, it was very confusing. The people said you need to go to a gas station to get gas if you need to flee. You need to put water in your bathtub, that you have water if the water is stopped to
Cut
run,
off. Yes.
and you need to get for electricity and this. And then you start the total different way of thinking. Before, you were living in your new house, you know, a little bit material paradise, everything is nice. You didn't think about water supply, electricity, or something like that, or gas. You just relaxed. And this is a totally different reality then. And I remember I was driving to the gas station. There was a huge line, and our house is outside of Kiev, south of Kiev, like 5 kilometers south of Kiev. And I remember I was standing at the gas station at our village, and people were coming out of Kiev, masses of people by foot running out of Kiev, just on the highway. We have like not a real highway like in Germany, but like a Landstraße, you can say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because our village, when you drive further this highway, then you come to Odessa. It's going to the south, to Odessa, south of Ukraine. So and I remember I was standing there, and masses of people were running out of Kiev with a suitcase, kids, with them, old people, young people, men, women, like hysterical ants. It was like this was my first picture, and then I realized, okay, this could be that this can be the last days of your life. And then I started calling my family, my parents, my brother, friends in Germany, Sasha, my cousin, and other people, to tell them, okay, the war has started. I don't know what will happen, but if something happens to us, then I just want to know that you to know that I love you, that we will see each other in the next world,
Oh my
and
God.
don't panic. Don't panic. Everything will be fine, but we try to survive. But I don't know what will happen. I didn't know, because by then I only heard stories about war from my German grandfather,
Of course.
who was fighting in the Second World War when he was 14, from my grandma when she was fleeing from the Russian army, getting raped, and her sister getting raped, her brother who was 6 years old getting raped, and this and Ken, and her friends getting shot, and this. So this memories popped up in my mind, and I said, okay, so it's something that you cannot be sure that you can survive the next hour, the next day, the next week. You don't know what will happen. And then I got the gas. I went back. And then a lot of friends called me and asked me what to do. This was very strange. They called me and they said, should we go? Should we stay? What should we do? We want to go out of Kiev. And then we said to many of them, come to us, come to us. And then sometimes we had 20 people at our house. They were sleeping there. At the end, we were 13 people living in our house and a cat. And so we tried to be a shelter for people who don't know where to go, or who were a little bit panicking and didn't know what to do. And we always said, come first to us. And then they were at our place, and sometimes we tried to calm them down, and then they moved to some other places where they wanted to go to the west of Ukraine or something like that. And what was amazing, the first 2, 3 days, it's very tense. And for me, it was very tense because I was always thinking you cannot protect your family because you don't know where the rockets are coming from. And it was very confusing. There were parachuters from the Russian army coming into our village. They tried to conquer the surrounding villages of Kiev to encircle Kiev at one point. There were rockets flying over our heads 1 kilometer away from us, 500 meter away from us, hitting houses, 2, 3 kilometers. We had air defense rockets going up, shooting at fighter jets. I was going out the first 2, 3 days, and I saw 2, 3 fighter jets fighting in the sky, and it's like totally surreal. You don't know what to do. And the first 2, 3 days was very strange for me because I didn't have any control. I didn't know what to do in form of protecting my family. But then when the friends came, and the neighbors, I saw the neighbors, how devastated they were. I realized that I need to help them. And this was helping me to cope with the situation. It was very interesting. So what I started to do to realize that if you help others in this situation and try to serve them, you get calm. And this was the case. It was very interesting. And after 3, 4 days, I was totally calm, no matter what happened. It was so strange that when we have a half underground garage. So this is the safest point when they say you need 2 layers of beton ceilings when a rocket comes that you survive. And this was the only place for us where 2 layers above us with beton ceilings are. And then we put mattresses there, and women and kids, sometimes 20, sometimes 13 people living with us. Women and kids were always there especially in the first week, because the bombing didn't stop. It was always bombing. And sometimes we were downstairs and the walls shake so much, 2, 3 times I thought our house or some house around us was hit. And but this was never the case. And what was interesting, why I say I got so calm, our kids were at that time 3 years old, 3, 4 years old, and 6 years old. And when the rockets came down, I was so calm that the kids came to me. This was like an instinct to come to me because they saw, okay, he's the calmest one, perhaps, or the biggest one, or because there were not so many men at that time. And then they came to me to look for shelter. But this was very interesting. And you cannot imagine what was inspiring for me. What happened is we moved into this house a week before. Then we were like 2, 3 days in the war. And after 3, 4 days, we knew every neighbor here. And the neighbors also, they worked together to help each other. Some had water, some had bread, some had chicken, some had potatoes, and they were coming to each other and always communicating what is needed here, what is needed there. And I was amazed to see this unity and the spark of humanity. Because we didn't think of he's driving a Mercedes, he's driving a Volkswagen Polo, he's driving not a car at all, with a bicycle, he has a big house, a small house. In this moment, we just when we met on the street, we were just human beings to help each other. And this was so inspiring for me that I saw that because I was thinking, wow, look what a war can do to bring out the best in the human being. Everybody around you tries to help, tries to support, tries to serve each other. And this was really amazing to see. And it was so inspiring. I'll give you one example. We had a neighbor. He was a very big guy, a very big Ukrainian guy. Like when you see him on the street, you would go to the other side because you're afraid of him when you see him. And very tough guy. And the first days I remember he said, yeah, we need to send a lot of dead Russians back, that they understand that they cannot conquer us and this and that. But then what happened is, after a week, when I met him on the street and I saw him, he saw me, he started crying. And the moment was so intense, but not because of fear. But he said to me, he's so happy to see me, We were so happy to see each
So,
other that it was so you have a different bond to people when this happens. And they're like family then. Unbelievable. Never witnessed that before. And hopefully we'll never witness this again. But this is really what was inspiring. Yeah, but I stop here. You have some other questions.
of
Sorry, I
course,
was
thank you.
talking too much.
It's just for my understanding and so understanding of my audience. I mean, you're a migrant by yourself, right? I mean, you moved there, you were there a couple of years, maybe less than maybe I would say less than 10 years, and
Hmm.
the war broke out. And now you yourself, as an Iranian Persian, became shelter for the Ukrainian locals. And they came to your house. You sheltered them, you helped them. I mean, potentially, you had the opportunity as a German citizen to go back. What did motivate you to stand and stay and remain in such a devastating, discouraging time? You could actually grab your kids, Zhenya, your wife, and go back to Germany, and
Hmm.
just saving your skin. Why did you
Hmm.
stay?
I mean, we at the beginning we didn't want to go because we were also discussing that, and we realized that it's very important to stay and to help the people who are at our place. And it got much more dangerous later, after about 2, 3 weeks, when even our village, 80% of the village left. And we realized that because all our friends, the families we knew, they came to us and said, here's our key to our house, please take it, please take it. And we had like 20, 25 houses, keys, take care of my goldfish, take care of my cat, take care of my, I don't know what. And then we realized also when we were going through the village every day to see if somebody needs help, we realized that there were less and less houses with lights in. But at the beginning, we thought we need to stay there to help the people. And also, you don't know what happens. You know, we were also thinking, okay, if we leave, first of all, who says that we will be safe when we go? Who says that this will be easy with kids? And so let's stay here. And we even had a plan if the Russian army is coming, because it was always close that they're coming, and we had the information that they're close. They were fighting always in two villages away to break through. And we had a plan when we were 13 people at the end. And I said, okay, give me all your passports. If they come, I will go out and tell them, look, I'm a German. Here's my passport. I'm sorry. But we have 13 people here. We are not a threat to your army, and try my best that they let us be alive, let's say like this. So this was the original plan. But then we heard that from Irpin, what they do, what they did there. And it was horrible what we heard. It was horrible. I had colleagues, they had relatives in Irpin. They were telling me things. I had friends. I had students. I was also not a professor, but a docent at the university here, or still am, for the law faculty here in the Muhila University in Ukraine. Kiev Muhila Academy, just to be correct. And they sent me pictures of European and what happens there, and it was awful. And then we realized if the Russian army is coming, the chances are very high that they kill all the men or take them away, rape all the women or kill them, and do whatever they want to do with the kids. And we had two kids, our kids. And then this was very tough moment for us when I realized that. And the government, the oblast, the regional government, Kiev Oblast, they also said, okay, everybody in the village in Gapne where we are living needs to pack their stuff. And if it continues like this, we need to make a refugee corridor. And they did the same in Irpin, where the Russian army shot into the corridor and into the fleeing people, running people. So this was like the situation after 2.5 weeks. And then what I did, I said, I was discussing with Zhenya, my wife, and she said, I don't know what to do. I said, yeah, it's really tough. I also don't know what to do. And then I said to her, you know, what happens if everybody dies, only the kids survive and they do something with the kids? And I said to her, look, because I believe there is a life after death and that you will meet God or the creator or something, a manifestation of God representing him. And then I thought, what do I tell this person that I meet after life when they ask me, okay, we can understand that you risk the life of yourself, but what about your kids? Who gave you the
Permission. Yeah.
permission to do that? And then I said to Zhenya, I don't have an answer to that. So what do we do? And then we decided, okay, let's consult with the people who are living with us here, because they're also affected by that. And then we were consulting, and the consultation was very also amazing. So literally they said, look, Ario and Zhenya, whatever you decide we do, if it means that the Russian army comes and kills us all, it's fine for us. If you say we should go and some people go there, some people go there, and you go to Germany, it's also fine for us. And then we decided to leave Kiev, and we wanted to go to the western part of Ukraine, to Lviv. And we had friends there also. And then we were on our way, and all the houses, everything. But the way that we took was also awful. We were 29 hours on the way, and then we decided, okay, we go out of Ukraine and go to Germany. So we went to Germany after 3 weeks. But before we did that, we were organizing people to go to some safe places, some families there, some families there, and that everybody was in a secure situation. And then we went to Germany, but in Germany we didn't feel good. We felt like a plant that you take out of the soil, you know. And after a few months, and we when we lived in Germany, we realized we need to go back, and then we went back again. And so we are here since 2023. We are back here, and indeed, a few people ask me always, "Why do you stay here? Why you don't go back to Germany?" But it's my home. It's my also the people, the friends I have here. I send you a picture of our Nowruz feast at our
Absolutely.
house,
Yes. Persian New
which
Year.
we which
Yes.
which we had like 2, 3 weeks ago, and there were like
Yes.
30 people. And when you see the picture, you can understand they're all smiling. We had such a good time with barbecue. I did the qaimeh for them. They were so happy, and mastouchiat and this. They're so happy when I cook Persian for them, and also kubide and this. And then so for me, um, when I was in Germany, also the short period of time, I also realized, although I grew up in Germany, that I feel home in Ukraine. And when we were in Germany, my wife, she was also sad, and I said to her, "Let's go back." And our goal is to be buried in Ukraine, not now, but later, but to really stay here and to live here and to have a good life here.
Amazing. So now, in long-term perspective, how do you see yourself in Ukraine in a long term? I mean, do you feel, I mean, to stay there, seeing that as your second homeland, and do you feel yourself integrated? It is a country where you would say, okay, this is the place I would like to spend the autumn of my life there. Is it? How is it for you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have so many deep connections with people here and with the culture, with the friends, my profession, my being. It's very, if you would ask me, okay, you were born in Iran, you grew up in Germany, what is your heart? I would say it's Ukrainian.
It's amazing.
And so I would love to stay here, and I will try everything to stay here, everything. And to also have a prosperous life and peaceful life, also for my kids and my family. So the future is there, but you never know what happens in life, you know, you never know. I also need to be fair. My parents are quite old, and if something happens to them, I also need to take care of that together with my brother, who is in Germany. But you never know what happens. I have a cousin who may need my help, or his family, and or I may get a health problem, and then they cannot treat it here, but perfectly in Germany. You never know what will
Yes.
happen in life. But if I could make a wish, I would say, please let me stay in Ukraine and die in Ukraine as an old man, happy old man.
Amazing perspective. So now, just to sum it up as my last very personal question, as a person who was born in Iran, migrated to Germany, had a quite prosperous life, and then decided at one point of his life to go to Ukraine, and the war broke out, and you stayed there, and again stayed there. What is your very cordial, heart-filling message to the people who are watching us, who are listening to us? What would you like to convey to them as a person who really went through these turbulences? This is, I mean, you are Iranian, you're German, you're Bahá'í, you migrated to Ukraine, and this is really very complex, diversified mosaic in your life. You married an Ukrainian lady. You have two kids. What is your message really from people to people?
So my message, far away of that I have accomplished it, but would be everywhere you are, in every moment of your life, no matter what country or situation, Everywhere is love and light. You just need to look and need to identify it everywhere. Even in a war, you can see love, unity, and light based on fear, based on but it's still there and you can see it. And be a stronghold for weak ones, be a hope for hopeless. Don't give up. Never, never. And try to serve mankind. This is the best for yourself. Don't think about yourself so much. You know, when we think about ourselves, I also do that. We think, oh, our career, or this, our life, or that. But if you break it down, when I look at my life, by now it's not ending, hopefully. But when I look by now, you know, the times of my life when I had a career and money and this were not the most happiest ones. It was interesting, and I'm thankful for it. Also, the people I met in Munich and at my work and everything. But it's like the nice moments in life that identify you are the ones where you have love and communion with other people, when you help each other, when you serve mankind. And even this is interesting. I didn't know that. I read this quotation that the purpose in life is to serve humanity. I read it about Leo Tolstoy. He said it. This is a
That's
quotation
true.
also of Leo Tolstoy, of course, of Baha'u'llah also, but Leo Tolstoy also said this.
Amazing.
So yeah,
Ario, thank you so much for your participation, for your time, for your cordial, actually sharing your experiences, your worldview to me and to our audience. So I hope that was our first interview. I hope it would be not the last one. I would like to host you again. So I wish you all the best for you, for your community, for your kids, for the people you love, and the peace for the world. So I say goodbye to you and auf Wiedersehen and Khoda Nigahdar. How would you say that in Ukrainian? Goodbye.
they say paka paka.
Paka
This is
paka.
like
Okay.
a
Like
very
paka in Russian.
informal
Yeah, I see.
among friends.
The
Paka
colloquial form.
paka.
Okay. All the
Yeah.
best. Thank you so much. Appreciate.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
My
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you,
Thank
Farshid.
you. Thank you.